The abandoned Alpha Varg. The ashen sky swirled with acrid smoke, casting an eerie pall over the battle-scarred landscape. Amidst the twisted wreckage of once mighty warships, a lone figure lay motionless, his breaths coming in shallow, ragged gasps. Krav, an Alpha Varg, genetically engineered for war, loyalty, and savagery, had been left to die on this forgotten planet. For cycles, Krav had served his Zorgax masters faithfully, leading his pack with ruthless precision. Memories of glorious conquests flashed through his mind. The thrill of the hunt, the crunch of bones beneath his powerful jaws, the pride in his master's praise. But now, as Krav lay broken and bleeding, those triumphs felt hollow. The war had ended not with victory, but with a whimper, treaties signed, weapons laid down, and creatures like Krav cast aside like spent ammunition. The Zorgax had no use for a Varg who had outlived his purpose. They had left him here to rot, discarded like the ruins that surrounded him. Pain lanced through Krav's body as he struggled to stand, his once mighty frame racked with injuries and starvation. The nano-enhancements that had made him an apex predator flickered and faded, leaving him weakened and vulnerable. He had been bred for strength, but even he had his limits. As darkness crept into the edges of his vision, Krav let out a mournful howl, a sound of despair and betrayal echoing across the lifeless plains. He had given everything to the Zorgax, his loyalty, his strength, his very being. And in return, they had abandoned him. With one last shuddering breath, Krav collapsed back onto the blood-soaked ground, awaiting the inevitable embrace of death. Little did he know, fate had other plans for this forsaken war dog. A chance encounter was about to change the course of Krav's life, and with it, the very fabric of the galaxy itself. For even in his darkest hour, hope flickered on the horizon, carried on the wings of a most unlikely savior, the humans he had once been bred to destroy. A chance encounter. The human exploration vessel Intrepid glided through the inkiness of space, its sensors probing the lifeless worlds that dotted the Zorgax-ravaged sector. Commander Jace Hartwell watched the readouts flicker across the screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. Their mission was one of discovery and research, but in the wake of the Zorgax War, even science had become a dangerous game. "Sir, we're picking up a faint life sign on the surface of X-13, Ensign Ruvik reported, his voice tinged with surprise. "It's weak, but definitely there." Jace leaned forward, his interest piqued. X-13 had been a major battleground during the war, a once thriving colony now reduced to a graveyard of shattered dreams and twisted metal. The idea of anything surviving down there was nothing short of miraculous. "Bring us in for a closer look," Jace ordered, "and inform Dr. Lina Sorensen that she might be needed." As the Intrepid descended into the planet's atmosphere, the extent of the devastation became apparent. Jagged spires of blackened steel jutted from the scorched earth like the bones of long-dead beasts. Amidst the carnage, a single blip pulsed weakly on the life scanner. The landing party disembarked, weapons at the ready. In this shattered landscape, danger could lurk around any corner. They picked their way through the debris, following the scanner's insistent ping. What they found stopped them dead in their tracks. Lying in a pool of his own blood was a massive, wolf-like creature, his fur matted with grime and gore. Jace recognized it instantly. A Varg, one of the Zorgax's bioengineered killing machines. He had seen firsthand the destruction these beasts could unleash, had lost good soldiers to their vicious packs. But this Varg was different. It lay unmoving, its flanks barely rising with each labored breath. Its eyes, once alight with predatory cunning, were glazed and unfocused. Against all odds, against all reason, Jace felt a stirring of pity for the creature. Dr. Lina Sorensen pushed past the stunned soldiers, med scanner already whirring in her hands. She knelt beside the fallen Varg, her movements gentle and precise. "He's badly injured," she reported, her voice tight with urgency. "Severe lacerations, internal bleeding, malnourishment. It's a wonder he's still alive at all. Doc, are you crazy? Sergeant Griff hissed, his rifle trained on the Varg's prone form. That thing's a monster, a killer. We should put it out of its misery. But Lena shook her head, her eyes blazing with determination. No, he's a victim, just like any wounded soldier. I swore an oath to help those in need, and I intend to honor that. Jace looked from the battered Varg to his medic's resolute face. He had always trusted Lena's judgment, and he wasn't about to stop now. All right, Doc, he said, his decision made. Save him if you can. But the Zorgax can never know. As far as the galaxy's concerned, the Varg died with the war. As Lena and her team loaded the unconscious Varg onto a stretcher, Krav stirred, confusion and fear flashing through his pain-addled mind. These were humans, the very enemies he had been bred to destroy. And yet, as he slipped back into oblivion, he could have sworn he felt the gentle touch of a kind hand, a whisper of reassurance. For the first time in his life, Krav, the Alpha Varg, found himself at the mercy of the beings he once hunted. Little did he realize, this was just the beginning of a journey that would redefine everything he thought he knew about loyalty, honor, and his own place in the universe. Krav's road to recovery. In the sterile confines of the Intrepid's medbay, Dr. Lena Sorensen worked tirelessly to save the life of her most unusual patient. Krav, the battle-scarred Varg, lay motionless on the operating table, his breath coming in shallow rasps as Lena and her team fought to repair the damage wrought by war and abandonment. It was a daunting task, even for a skilled xenobiologist like Lena. Varg physiology was a mystery, a complex tapestry of bioengineering and natural evolution woven together by the Zorgax's twisted genius. Every incision, every treatment, was a step into the unknown. But Lena refused to give up. She saw in Krav not just a wounded animal, but a sentient being deserving of compassion and care. With each passing day, as she tended to his injuries and monitored his vital signs, a bond began to form between the unlikely pair, a bond of trust and understanding that transcended the barriers of species and allegiance. For Krav, the experience was nothing short of surreal. He had known nothing but the harsh discipline of Zorgax masters and the brutal camaraderie of his fellow Varg. The concept of kindness, of empathy, was as foreign to him as the sterile walls of the medbay. And yet, as Lena's gentle hand soothed his pain and her soft voice whispered encouragement, Krav found himself drawn to this strange new world of human compassion. As his body healed, so too did Krav's mind begin to wander. He watched the humans as they went about their duties, marveling at their easy camaraderie and the way they treated each other with respect and dignity. It was a far cry from the cruel hierarchy of the Zorgax, where weakness was punished and strength was all that mattered. Krav began to question everything he had ever known. If the humans, his sworn enemies, were capable of such kindness, then what did that say about the Zorgax way of life? Had he been fighting for the wrong side all along? These were dangerous thoughts, Krav knew. The conditioning of a lifetime was not easily undone. But with each passing day, as his strength returned and his bond with Lena deepened, Krav found himself daring to imagine a different future, one where he was more than just a weapon, more than just a cog in the Zorgax war machine. Of course, Krav's presence on the Intrepid could not remain a secret forever. Commander Hartwell and his crew knew that harboring a Varg was a grave risk, one that could bring the full wrath of the Galactic Council down upon their heads. If word got out, they would be branded as traitors, their lives and careers forfeit. But Jace Hartwell was a man of principle, and he knew that sometimes doing the right thing meant defying the powers that be. He saw in Krav a chance for redemption, a chance to prove that even the most fearsome of creatures could change, could learn to live in peace. And so, as Krav's recovery progressed and his strength returned, the crew of the Intrepid made a fateful decision. They would help their newfound ally, no matter the cost. They would give him a chance to forge his own destiny, freed from the shackles of his past. Little did they know, That destiny was hurtling towards them at breakneck speed, in the form of a Zorgak's death squad hellbent on reclaiming their lost weapon. For Krav, the road to redemption was about to take a deadly turn, one that would test the bonds of loyalty and friendship forged in the crucible of war. The hunt had become the hunters. The attack came without warning, a swift and sudden strike that shattered the fragile peace of the Intrepid's journey. One moment, the ship was cruising through the void, its crew going about their daily routines. The next, alarms were blaring, shields were buckling, and the acrid scent of burning metal filled the air. In the chaos of the assault, Jace Hartwell barked orders, his voice cutting through the din like a knife. "Report. What's hitting us?" The answer came in the form of a grainy vid-screen image, a sight that sent chills down the spines of every human on the bridge. A Zorgak's death squad ship, bristling with weapons and filled with the Imperium's most ruthless killers. And emblazoned on its hull, a symbol that struck fear into the hearts of all who saw it, the mark of the Varg hunters. Jace knew in that instant that their secret was out. Somehow, the Zorgaks had learned of Krav's presence on the Intrepid, and they had come to reclaim their lost weapon, no matter the cost. In the medbay, Lena and Krav watched the unfolding chaos with a mix of dread and determination. For Krav, the arrival of his former masters was a moment he had long feared, a reckoning for his perceived betrayal. But as he looked into Lena's eyes, saw the steely resolve there, he knew that he could not, would not, abandon his new pack. With a roar that shook the bulkheads, Krav leaped from the medbay bed, his injuries forgotten in the heat of battle. He raced through the Intrepid's corridors, a silver blur of fur and fury, towards the airlock where the Zorgak's hunters were already breaching the hull. Jace and his security team were there to meet them, weapons primed and ready. But even the hardened skills of the human warriors were no match for the savagery of the Varg hunters. They poured through the breach like a tide of death, all fangs and claws and merciless purpose. It was then that Krav burst onto the scene, a snarling cyclone of raw power and unbreakable will. He charged into the fray without hesitation, his loyalty to his human pack overriding a lifetime of Zorgak's conditioning. The battle was joined, a whirlwind of blood and valor as human and Varg fought side by side against a common foe. Krav was a force of nature, his every move a symphony of deadly grace. He tore through the hunters' ranks, his claws finding gaps in armor, his jaws crushing bone and sinew. Jace and his team rallied around their unexpected ally, their guns blazing, their hearts pounding with the thrill of righteous battle. Together, they drove the hunters back, step by blood-soaked step, until the once pristine corridors of the Intrepid were a charnel house of broken bodies and shattered dreams. In the end, it was Krav who faced down the leader of the hunters, a scared and grizzled Varg with death in his eyes and the Zorgak's Imperium in his heart. For a long moment, the two warriors stared each other down, a lifetime of loyalty and betrayal hanging in the balance. "You have forgotten your place, Krav," the hunter growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You belong to the Imperium, now and forever." But Krav only laughed, a sound as cold and sharp as the void itself. "I belong to no one," he snarled, "save those who have earned my loyalty. The humans have shown me a better way, a path of honor and compassion, and that is a path I choose for myself." With those words, Krav leaped, his claws outstretched, his heart full of a fierce and unbreakable joy. The battle that followed was a thing of legend, a dance of death between two titans of the Varg world. But in the end, there could be only one victor. As Krav stood over the broken body of his former master, his fur matted with blood both alien and familiar, he felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. He had made his choice, had fought for something greater than mere survival or blind obedience. He had fought for a future, and that future was his to shape. The free Varg. In the aftermath of the brutal battle with the Zorgak's death squad, the crew of the Intrepid took stock of their losses and their hard-won victory. The ship was battered but unbroken, a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. And at the center of it all stood Krav, the Varg warrior who had turned his back on a lifetime of servitude to fight alongside his newfound allies. But even as the humans celebrated their triumph, Krav felt a growing unease gnawing at his heart. He knew that the Zorgax would not rest until they had reclaimed their lost weapon, that they would hunt him to the ends of the galaxy and beyond. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that he could not allow his human pack to pay the price for his freedom. In the quiet of the medbay, Krav sought out Lena, the woman who had shown him the true meaning of compassion and care. She looked up as he entered, her eyes widening at the resolute expression on his face. "Krav, what is it?" she asked, her voice soft with concern. "Are you in pain?" Krav shook his head, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the sterile walls of the ship. "I must leave," he said, his voice a low rumble in the stillness of the room. "The Zorgax will not stop hunting me, and I cannot let you and your crew suffer for my sake." Lena's heart clenched at his words, a sudden fierce ache that took her breath away. In the time they had spent together, she had come to care for Krav more deeply than she had ever thought possible. The idea of losing him, of watching him disappear into the vast and dangerous expanse of space, was almost more than she could bear. But she knew, in that moment, that she had to let him go, that the greatest act of love was sometimes the hardest one of all. With tears in her eyes, Lena reached out and took Krav's massive paw in her own small, delicate hand. "I understand," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "But know this, Krav, you will always have a home here with us. No matter where your path takes you, you will always be a part of our pack." Krav felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words, a feeling of belonging that he had never known before. He leaned down and touched his forehead to hers, a gesture of affection and respect that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. "Thank you," he murmured, his breath warm against her skin, "for everything." And then he was gone, slipping away into the shadows of the ship like a ghost in the night. Lena watched him go, her heart full of a bittersweet mix of sorrow and pride. She knew that Krav was setting out on a journey that only he could take, a quest for identity and purpose in a galaxy that had once seen him as nothing more than a living weapon. As Krav made his way to the Intrepid's hangar bay, he was met by Jace and the rest of the crew. They stood in silence, their faces etched with a mix of sadness and respect, as they watched the Varg warrior prepare for his departure. Jace stepped forward, his hand outstretched, a small data chip resting in his palm. "Take this," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "It's a map of the Outer Rim, with safe havens and friendly ports marked. It's not much, but it's a start." Krav took the chip, his eyes meeting Jace in a moment of silent understanding. "Thank you," he said, his voice a low growl in the stillness of the hangar, "for giving me a chance when no one else would." Jace nodded, his face a mask of stoic determination. "You earned it, Krav. You showed us that honor and loyalty. No species, that even the most unlikely of allies can become the truest of friends." With those words ringing in his ears, Krav boarded the small scout ship that the crew had prepared for him. As the engines hummed to life and the airlock sealed behind him, he felt a sense of purpose settle over him like a mantle. He was no longer a weapon, no longer a pawn in someone else's war. He was Krav, the free Varg, and his destiny was his own to shape. As the Intrepid faded into the distance behind him, Krav set his course for the Outer Rim, his heart full of hope and determination. He knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that he would face challenges and dangers beyond anything he had ever known. But he also knew that he was not alone, that he carried with him the love and support of his human pack, no matter how far he roamed. And deep in his heart, Krav made a silent vow. He would find others like himself, other Varg who had been discarded and abandoned by the Imperium. He would show them that there was another way, a path of honor and freedom that they could claim for themselves. And together, they would forge a new future, one where the Varg were more than just living weapons, more than just tools of conquest and destruction. They would become something new, something greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They would become the Free Varg, and their legend would echo through the stars for generations to come. A new mission. The vastness of space stretched out before Krav like an endless canvas, a tapestry of stars and worlds waiting to be explored. In the weeks since he had left the Intrepid and its crew behind, he had wandered the outer rim, following the star map Jace had given him, searching for signs of other Varg like himself. Lost, abandoned, but not yet broken. It was on a small, desolate moon that he found them. A ragged band of Varg pups, their fur matted with grime and their eyes hollow with hunger and despair. They huddled together in the ruins of an old Zorgax outpost, flinching at every shadow, every sound, as if expecting the cruel lash of their former masters to fall upon them at any moment. Krav's heart ached at the sight of them, so young and so utterly alone in the universe. He approached them slowly, his massive form lowered to the ground, his eyes soft with compassion and understanding. "Do not be afraid," he rumbled, his voice a gentle thunder in the stillness of the ruined outpost. "I am Krav, and I am here to help you." The pups looked up at him with wary eyes, their small bodies trembling with fear and exhaustion. But as Krav drew closer, as they caught the scent of him, a scent that was both familiar and strange, a scent of Varg, and yet not, something in them seemed to relax, to unfurl like a flower in the sunlight. Slowly, hesitantly, they crept towards him, their tails wagging tentatively, their noses twitching with curiosity. Krav sat down among them, his massive form dwarfing their own, and began to speak to them in soft, soothing tones. He told them of his own story, of his time with the Zorgax and his rescue by the humans of the Intrepid. He told them of the lessons he had learned, of the power of compassion and the strength that came from standing together as a pack. And he told them of his dream, his vision of a future where the Varg were free to choose their own path, to live with honor and purpose beyond the cruel yoke of the Imperium. As he spoke, Krav could see the light returning to the pups' eyes, the sparkle of hope and wonder that had been so cruelly snuffed out by their former masters. They crowded around him, their small bodies pressing against his own, their hearts beating with a newfound sense of belonging and purpose. In the days that followed, Krav taught the pups all that he had learned from his time with the humans. He showed them how to forage for food and water, how to navigate by the stars, how to find shelter and safety in the harsh wilderness of the Outer Rim. And he taught them the ways of the hunt, the skills and strategies that had once made the Varg the most feared warriors in the galaxy. But more than that, he taught them the value of compassion, of loyalty, of standing together as a pack no matter the odds. Under his guidance, the pups began to thrive, their bodies growing strong and their spirits unbreakable. They became more than just survivors. They became a family, bound together by the unshakable bonds of love and trust. As word of Krav's pack began to spread throughout the Outer Rim, other Varg began to seek them out. Lone warriors and abandoned pups, all searching for a place to belong, for a cause to believe in. Krav welcomed them all, his heart swelling with pride and purpose as he watched his pack grow and flourish. They became known as the Free Varg, a legend whispered in the shadows of the galaxy, a pack of warriors who fought not for conquest or glory, but for the right of all beings to live with dignity and honor. They struck at Zorgax outposts and slave ships, liberating the oppressed and giving hope to the hopeless. And always at the center of it all was Krav, the Alpha, the visionary, the living embodiment of all that the Free Varg stood for. Years passed, and the legend of the Free Varg only grew. And though Krav never forgot his human friends, never lost the spark of compassion and understanding that they had kindled within him, he knew that his place was with his pack, with the beings who looked to him for guidance and strength. For he was Krav, the Alpha of the Free Varg, and his destiny was to lead his people to a brighter future, to forge a new path in the stars beyond the reach of tyranny and oppression. And as long as he drew breath, As long as his heart beat with the fierce, unbreakable rhythm of hope and determination, he would never stop fighting for that dream. Across the galaxy, on a small blue planet spinning in the eternal dance of the cosmos, a woman with silver hair and a face lined with wisdom smiled up at the stars, her heart full of pride and bittersweet memory. For she knew, with a certainty that transcended time and distance, that somewhere out there, a warrior with fur of silver and a heart of gold was still fighting the good fight, still carrying the torch of hope and compassion that she had helped to kindle so long ago. "Farewell, my friend," Lena whispered, her voice a soft benediction in the stillness of the night. "Until we meet again, in this life or the next." And the stars above twinkled in silent response, a celestial symphony of hope and promise, as the legend of the free Varg lived on, a shining beacon of courage and compassion in a galaxy too often consumed by darkness and despair. For as long as there were those who dreamed of freedom, who fought for the right of all beings to live with dignity and honor, the spirit of Krav and his pack would endure, a testament to the unbreakable resilience of the soul and the indomitable power of hope.